Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Gerard, Witch of Earth's Curious Goods, and today I decided that I was going to do a video on the basics of an altar. So if you don't have an altar, then you might want to do this. And for those of you that maybe have been curious about an altar or what it means to have an altar, yeah, keep on watching. And even if you do have an altar, for instance, maybe you'll hear something or see something even on my altar that maybe you're like, oh, would like that. Maybe give you some inspiration. So, without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so an altar. The first thing I want to say is that what I'm going over is not the end all and be all. Okay, the purpose of this video is to give you some inspiration, maybe a starting point, and with all my videos, do your own research, right? Make the magic your own. But I thought that for those of you that maybe haven't seen anything on how to create an altar, or maybe there's some confusion there, maybe I can help out, draw some light on it. So to begin with, the best thing that I always like to do to think of an altar is if you remember when you were just a kid, or where if it was something scary you would hide under the covers, or if there was a particular place in the house that you just felt safe, or maybe even now, maybe there's a particular place at a park that you like to sit and just read and just feel one with the world, right? Maybe there's a particular house or car, or even if it's just a particular spot in a room that you just feel comfortable in. That's the way that I like to look at an altar, okay? And in my opinion, an altar is a place of power. It's a personal space, okay? And why I recommend it is that for some, they have found that having an altar kind of takes their magic to another level, right? It takes their spell work to another level, gives them a place of power, a place of magical working. So that's why I say that if you do want to try having an altar, try it out. Now, there are some that do two types of altars, okay? There's just the altar, and then there's another one called a working altar. For me, when I have a working altar, that's where all my spell work gets done. So like say I'm doing a spell on someone or for someone, I tend to use that altar. Versus the altar behind me that you see, I am a devotee of the triune God, or the Christian God. I also worship the triune God. So that's what that altar is for. It's my place of worship. It's my personal space. It's where I find where I am powerful, where I find peace. And an altar can be many things, right? It doesn't have to be what you see behind me. And my altar is a bookshelf, and it has grown over the years. Don't get me wrong. When I first started, oh my gosh, my altar was just the ground. It was a ground with a bunch of crystals in a circle, right? Make the altar personal to you. All altars, an altar for everyone is going to be different, right? And it is going to be used differently by many walks of life because, of course, the craft is the craft. It is personal to the actual person. You are crafting it. You're creating it. So I encourage you to make the altar very personal, right? And like I said, when I first started, it was just the ground. It was just a flat ground with a bunch of crystals all around and just some sticks and stuff, things that were personal to me at that time. As you can tell behind me, my altar has grown. It has changed, okay? Don't be afraid to let it change. Don't be afraid to build on it. But there are many ways to use the altar, many versions of it. And behind me is my version of the altar. It's a bookcase that has a statue of the Virgin Mary. It has some crosses, the representations of the triune God all on the altar. So that's a whole nother ball game. But make the altar very personal. Maybe it's an altar dedicated to your ancestors. Maybe you work with ancestors, right? You're gonna have pictures of your ancestors, things that represent family or the ancestors in general. Presentations of the gods that you worship. Maybe you just work with spirits. The altar doesn't have to be have anything to do with deities. Maybe you just don't do deity work at all. It can just be an altar for personal peace and tranquility, something that you focus on. Maybe it's just a place that you come to be happy, to focus. But I would recommend to just make it very personal to you. The more personal that you make your altar, the better, right? So just to summarize, an altar can be as basic as just the ground and an area that you find very personal. It's your personal space where you come for power, for tranquility, for peace, to build on it. It could just be stones and crystals or pictures of spirits. It could just be a plant, right? But an altar, in my experience, has taken my spellcraft to a whole nother level. I find that when I come to the altar, I have a different state of mind. That's the whole goal for me on why I have an altar, is that it changes my mind state from the mundane to the divine, to the other world, to remind me that I'm going to be doing spell work, remind me that I'm a witch and that I stand between the worlds. And that's just for me in particular. When you come to your altar, maybe it is so that you can be closer to your ancestors. Maybe it's to center yourself. Maybe it's to go ahead and bring peace into your world and to leave the mundane world and its stresses behind, right? It's your go-to place, right? But like I said, personal space. So that means that if you just want an altar to just be pretty to look at, that's fine too, right? What makes you happy? What gives you that magical feeling, that peace, that tranquility, that inner power? By all means, right? I have seen many, many different types of altars with my experience and with my journey. And the more people that I come across, I love seeing the different altars that they have. Please, if you have Instagram, tag at Earth's Curious Goods. I would love to see your altars. Comment down below if you have an altar already. What are some things that you have on your altar, right? For me, like I said, I just have representations of the Triune God. I have my tarot cards. I have offerings. Like I said, I am a devotee of the Triune God, so I definitely have like offerings on there. But that is also, and that brings me to also a good place for you to do your offerings, right? And it doesn't have to be indoors. As you can tell, mine is indoors. That's just where I find center and peace. Some altars I have found outside. It could be a tree stump. It could just be a tree. Maybe it's a personal tree that, or a relationship that you have with that tree, and that tree is now a representation of an altar. You come in and hang things and do representations for it, or maybe you work with the land spirits or spirits in general. That's where an altar comes into play, right? It's a personal power. It's a place of peace. It reminds you that you are not in the mundane, and it can mean many, many things. I just wanted to give you just the basics of it. So, like I said, if you can make it as simple as not having anything. It could just be the ground. It could be a tree. I see a lot of my friends and people that I've come across where they just use a table as their altar. It could be an end table. It could just be a circle table, square, triangle, whatever you so choose, right? Make the magic your own. But try it out. See how it works for you. I have found that having an altar, like I said, has enhanced my magic. It has not hindered me, but I encourage you to try it. See how it works, and you may be surprised. Well, I hope you liked today's video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe as I make new videos. Once again, if you have Instagram, if you could take a picture of your altar and tag it at Earth's Curious Goods. I would love to see what your altar looks like, and if you don't feel like doing pictures, that's perfectly fine, because it can be personal. Some people don't even share their altars. Comment down below maybe some things that you put on your altar, or some recommendations, or what is your experience with an altar. We would love to hear about it. I always read the comments, and who knows, you can be helping others out as well in the community. So, as always, love yourself and others. Stay earthy, stay magical. Bye for now.